competition. My name is Vincent, and I'm the Director of Public Relations at OneUp Toronto. My partner Lulu and I will be your hosts for today's session. Today, we're being joined by Danelle and Jennifer, program coordinators from the Urban Minds team, who are also here to answer any questions you may have related to the design competition. A few notes on the technical side of things. If you have any questions for us or anyone during the session, we will be using the chat function, which appears on the taskbar on the bottom of your Zoom window. There you will notice you have the option of sending a chat to an individual or to everyone. So be sure that your chat is visible to everyone if you want to participate in the conversation, or direct message me or any of the Urban Minds representatives if you need tech support. Feel free to use this tool at any point to engage with the presentation. I also strongly encourage you all to keep your cameras on throughout the session, or at least when we break you off into breakout rooms, and to unmute yourself to speak, answer questions, and participate in the breakout rooms. We really want these sessions to be as interactive and engaging as possible, and we can't do that without your participation. Also, please note that this session is being recorded and will be used for promotional materials, and feel free to tag us on Instagram or Twitter using @OneUpToronto and #OneUpDesignCompetition throughout the sessions. Finally, closed captioning is available on Zoom, which appears on the taskbar at the bottom of your Zoom window should you require it. We also highly encourage everyone to join our Discord server, which I am now going to link in the chat. There you go. On our Discord server, you can keep up to date with upcoming OneUp Toronto events and engage in conversation with your peers about various city building topics. We've also set up a specific channel, #DesignCompetitionQuestions, dedicated to any questions you may have about the OneUp Design Competition. We'll do our best to get back to you within 24 hours.
Good evening, everyone. Before we formally begin our session, it's important to acknowledge that Toronto is and has been the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. I wish to recognize the long-standing and ongoing Indigenous stewardship of this territory, as well as recognize that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, as well as the Williams Treaties. I recognize that at our webinar today, students may be spread all over the GTA, and would like to further acknowledge that lands surrounding Toronto are further covered by the Johnson-Butler Purchases and Treaty 19. Land acknowledgements recognize the land which we are situated on, but also allow us to reflect on past and present injustices. Today, we're meeting digitally, so I thought it would be fitting to consider the legacy of colonialism on the technology and equipment we use. Digital technologies are responsible for significant greenhouse gas emissions, which contribute to a changing climate that disproportionately affects Indigenous people. Further, as we use digital technologies, it's important to recognize the barriers many Indigenous communities currently face to digital equity. Understanding that in a digital age, access to technology is a prerequisite for innovation, self-governance, entrepreneurship, education, economic and cultural well-being, and nearly all aspects of rights implementation. I invite you all to join us in recognizing this and reflecting on our shared responsibility to make the most of our time in this digital space, as well as our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, and allyship. So, what is OneUp Toronto? OneUp Toronto is a youth-led initiative with a mission to educate and empower youth in the city building process. OneUp is powered by Urban Minds, which is a nonprofit organization with a mission to create meaningful ways for youth to shape equitable and sustainable cities. Since 2017, Urban Minds has been running the OneUp program with the goal to inspire and equip youth to become change makers in their communities. The OneUp program was created to help students like you find creative solutions to challenges in your neighborhoods to make them better and more livable. We also connect youth with opportunities to provide meaningful feedback on real design and planning projects, like the St. Jamestown Community Co-op, which is the challenge for our OneUp design competition this year. We'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our generous sponsors for their contributions. The One Up Design Competition, amongst our many other initiatives, would not be possible without their support. At the top, our diamond sponsor this year is IBI Group. Next, our platinum sponsor is SVM Architects and Planners. Our gold sponsors this year are GSP Group, Janet Rosenberg Studios, PFS Studio, GH3, Urban Strategies, MJMA, Core Architects, Perkins and Will, 880 Cities, and the Ontario Association of Landscape Architects.
Today we'll hear from our design competition partner, Brenna, who is representing the St. Jamestown Community Co-op to learn about the design challenge. So I'd like to welcome Brenna, who is representing the co-op, to talk about the design challenge. Brenna, who goes by she, her, is the Oasis Food Hub coordinator at St. Jamestown Community Co-op. She has held various roles in the fields of food justice in Toronto and truly believes in the revolutionary power of food. With the St. Jamestown Community Co-op, she has worked to create apartment-style aquaponic units, allowing residents to grow healthy food at home, and has been developing the plan for the co-op's 2 acres of farmland in Bolton. In her spare time, Brenna enjoys hiking, making meals for friends, and growing beautiful food.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Vincent. So nice to meet everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of your evening to come here tonight. So yeah, I'll just give a quick overview of who St. Jamestown Community Co-op is, and we'll get into what the community garden looks like, a little bit kind of our goals for it, and some of the challenges as well. And I'll answer any questions that anyone has towards the end. So St. Jamestown Community Co-op is a community-owned, democratically controlled nonprofit enterprise. We facilitate sustainable development projects in St. Jamestown. Next slide, please. Thank you. So our goals are to develop a community co-op model suitable for a multicultural, multilingual, low-income urban neighborhood, to provide development, support, communication, education, and training to enable St. Jamestown residents to successfully run social enterprises and community-based projects, and to create opportunities for green jobs and improve community health by developing resilient food security projects. Next slide, please. Thank you. So a little bit about our history. We're formed initially in 1991, the partnership with low-income families together. So we started to advocate for human rights and family economic support. In 2006, residents came together to call for healthy and accessible food in water and a human rights study for the neighborhood. And then we actually started a community cafe in 2011, and that was our first sort of real thing as a co-op. And then the co-op sort of evolved out of that cafe. So we did start in 2015, so we are relatively new in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, next slide, please. Thank you. And then here are some of our programs. So we have the Oasis Food Hub, which we're working on at the moment, which is part of a sort of bigger phase of projects. But the one we're working on now is this sort of micro farms project where we have these aquaponic style apartment units in some of the residents of St. Jamestown. So the sort of overarching goal of that is to eventually get a shipping container to sort of operate as our central food hub with a larger aquaponics unit and create a marketplace to sort of exchange goods and things that are grown in residents' apartments, which is pretty cool, very exciting. I was setting up the first one today, so that was cool to see. We have the EcoJust Food Network and the Food Corps. So the EcoJust Food Network basically is a way to reimagine how our relationship with food and consuming works. So we connect rural farmers with urban people, essentially creating this sort of dedicated group of volunteers who we take out to farms to do work for a day, and then bring them back. And then in return, this ties in with one of our other programs, time banking. So in return for the work that they do on the farms or volunteering with us, or really any sort of volunteer work, they receive time credits, which then can be spent on produce at our farm to table market, which is also part of our Good Food Buying Club. So everything's a little bit interconnected. But yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff, and as well as all of our community outreach that we do for residents as well. Yeah, next slide, please. Thank you. So the garden specifically is actually in one of our co-founders' backyards. So we kind of had this space, well, they had this space in their backyard, and sort of figured, we can't get any city dedicated space, so why not try to use this space? And we ended up getting the zoning to use it for a community garden, so that worked out very well. And was originally seen as a place we could come together and engage with the community. It was actually originally sort of like an extension of the cafe, with the thoughts of, we can use it to grow food for the cafe and for residents and whatnot. So yeah, it's especially during COVID. I mean, a lot of residents weren't able to come, but as restrictions lifted, it was really nice for people to be able to get outside and like have their own plots. And it was a really nice reprieve during that. So there are currently 9 plots, which are all maintained by community members. We also do have a 3-bin compost system. We have 3 rain barrels and a sun dehydrator as well. Next slide, please. Perfect. So these are some of the garden challenges that we've kind of come up with as a team at St. Jamestown, things that we've noticed over the years and things that we'd like to see improved and things that we've struggled with a little bit. So we would like ideally how we can figure out to design a more accessible and climate resilient garden. Accessible meaning there's not wheelchair access at the moment, and you'll see that in the sketch that we have in the next couple slides, but that would be a huge thing for us, is to make it more accessible, because there are some stairs for people to navigate. Not so great for all of our residents, and a more climate resilient garden as well, and what that would mean going forward. And then how we might create a more educational, full cycle food system within the space to increase neighborhood youth involvement. So for you folks on this call, sort of imagine what you would like to see out of a garden in terms of what would make it fun and interesting to you and your classmates and anyone, any of your friends. That's who we want to see. And that's historically, a lot of our engagement has been with older residents, which is great. And it's so great to have them out, but that is a portion of our resident population that we are missing as well. So to engage youth and yourselves, we would love to hear your ideas for that. We also do have some pest control issues, being a sort of downtown urban space. We do have raccoons and squirrels and whatnot. It's kind of a hard one to fix. I'm not like thinking of crazy ideas or whatnot, but just keep that in mind as you're going through with your design, because they do tend to wreak havoc on some of the plots, especially around tomato season and whatnot. So yeah, keep that in mind. And then we also would like to think more about how we can center and incorporate Indigenous crops, medicine, and/or Black food sovereignty into our garden plans, so that is dedicating a specific space for a medicine garden, or for Three Sisters growing, or for a Black food sovereignty organization to have space in our garden. Like, we are totally open to that as well. Yeah, whatever you folks come up with in terms of that. Next slide, please. Yeah, so these are some of our key ideas, which maybe it might be a little bit of repetition from the previous slide, but multi-generational, thoughtful inclusion of sustainable natural materials wherever possible. Use it more of a meeting and gathering place, because right now, the way it's set up, we kind of just have like a couple tables, couple chairs sort of in and about the property, and we would like to have more of an established place and more of a meaning, I guess, behind an intention behind those areas. More food growing, greenery, including raised beds. So right now they are in-ground plots. It would be really, really great to include raised beds, and especially for that accessibility piece. A lot of residents, like I said, are older, have problems with the bending and reaching and whatnot. So having raised beds that are more like waist height makes it a world of difference as well. Like I said, yeah, safety and accessibility, ensuring our soil health. That is something that we've been trying to work on over the years and try to build up a bit. But again, like if you are decide to raise beds, I guess that's something that's a bit more controlled as well, because you can control what goes in the raised beds. And then flexible spaces, so things don't have to stay the same way for years and years and years. My contract's just my position's just a contract position. So if I leave in the next year or two, the next coordinator comes in, maybe they have a totally different vision. So it needs to be able to adapt to those sort of changes as well. Next slide, please. And these are some key considerations, like again, sort of what I mentioned before, but 36% of the population of St. Jamestown is categorized as low income. There is a need for opportunities to support skilled newcomers and transition into the Canadian workforce. There's a very high population density in St. Jamestown, which is more than 18,000 with a density of over 44,000 per square kilometers. It's all, I don't know if you folks have been down there, but it's all high rise. It's everywhere you look. And there is a definite lack of green space that meets community needs. So having the space that is not being used for condo development or anything like that is really, really important to us. And over 56% of the population in St. Jamestown reports that their mother tongue is not English, and over 34% of the population reports that the language used at home is not English. This is something to consider maybe a bit down the line when going through different things in terms of like signage and anything posted, like if things need to be translated. Those are obviously more like nitty-gritty details, but just something to think about as well. And then 60% of respondents said that they would join a food co-op if it meant increased access to healthy food, and 72% of respondents said that they would like to see food grown in St. Jamestown and local trusted farms. So it's a huge draw for people to come out and be able to have their own plot and meet other people, especially the newcomer population. People will really, really love to grow things and have their own fresh produce to bring home to families. So just, yeah, next slide, please. Cool. And then this is the garden sketch. I think you should be able to see it okay. Sorry, it's a little bit small. So kind of divided it into 3 main zones. So this zone here, so I'm looking at, I don't know the best way to do this, where it says 16 feet. Oh yeah, whose cursor is that? Yeah, so down where it says 16 feet by the stairs at the bottom of the page. Maybe not. Yes, yeah, thank you. Perfect. So yeah, that area there, that is our sort of the front parking lot, sort of where you enter into the garden. So unfortunately it is sort of unusable space, but the vision is that the gate can be accessed, or sorry, the fence can be used. So in terms of putting a gate there or putting signage there or really anything, that's totally fine. But the actual space, minus where the stairs entrance is, residents park their car there, so we cannot use it, unfortunately. So then you come up the stairs there, and just to the right, or just up top there is the deck area. So it is quite a large deck. I think it's 21 by, it's like 9.5 feet. So it is quite a large space. It's skinny, but it's definitely workable. And there is a little bit of covered area at the base of the deck there as well. So a little bit of a shade area. Again, keeping in mind that there are tenants who live in that unit as well. So ideally nothing built super, super close to that sort of covered portion of the deck, because that is their space as well. And then, so we have our rain barrels there that collect our water, we can use for watering. So then the stairs sort of descend down into the actual garden space, which is zone C. So it is about 25 by 30 feet in the back there. And I just sort of marked out some of the key areas. So utility spaces in terms of, like I said, the rain barrel, the compost in the back left corner, and the storage area just across from that, which is that little skinny part that actually extends into the neighbor's yard, but it's sort of all enclosed. It's definitely a little bit in shambles at the moment. And it's, I guess that's the nicest way to say it. A little disorganized, I guess, is a nicer way of saying it. So yeah, that is definitely all space that can be totally revitalized. In terms of non-workable areas, like I said, the parking space at the front, this sort of space marked stump is this really sort of very thick, long stump that like you can't really build anything on unless you're maybe going to build something over it. But it's made the ground very, very uneven there. So I would just try to avoid that if possible. Like I said, something that can maybe go over, or yeah, some sort of something, but try to avoid anything on the ground. This small dot, sorry, I just realized I didn't label it, just to the left, yes, perfect, is a hydro pole. So just, it's pretty small, but definitely can't really do anything about that one. So just keep that in mind as well. And then this sort of existing tree that I have down here, it's not a very big tree. I just put the radius because it's going to be in full bloom at some point. And it's a little bit, it's honestly not very big. It's a pretty small tree, but yeah, it will be there. So just keep that in mind. I think that is everything. Oh, and I was just going to tell you that, so the way the beds are set up right now, and I'm sure you'll see by the pictures that are provided in the design brief, all of the beds are on the perimeter of the garden. So sort of along each wall, there's beds. Yeah, exactly. So that's how it's set up right now. Not married to that idea at all. You can feel free to change that layout in whatever way you see fit. But yeah, I think that's kind of everything I wanted to say. Oh, and then yeah, I have the direction that we're facing. So yeah, if you're looking at the garden, we're facing west. If you're looking at it from the deck, it's facing west. It gets pretty decent sun. There are some big trees around us and some taller houses beside, but it does get pretty decent sun in the summer. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about the garden. Oh, and then the scale in the left-hand corner. So 1 block is 2 feet. That helps in your process as well. Yeah, next slide, please. Cool, and then I'll just get into a little bit about who uses the garden, which I think I've kind of touched on a bit throughout, but these sort of personas were based on people that actually do use the garden. So for example, Tatiana is a physically disabled middle-aged immigrant woman who has lived in the community for 4 years. Tatiana uses a mobility device, but she does not need it at all times, primarily for long distances. She has 2 teenagers, age 15 and 17, and neither of them have grown food in the garden before. Tatiana is eager to learn how to grow food, and her teenagers come to help her with tasks she cannot accomplish alone. Tatiana is particularly interested in growing medicinal plants. Persona 2, we have Fatima and her family immigrated from Iraq in 2017. They have 3 young children who need green space to play and learn in. Fatima is concerned about the impact of living in high-rise with little space, no balcony, and the coming winter months of her children's mental, emotional, and physical health. And then we have Ahmed, who is a youth who has lived in the neighborhood for his whole life, is going to be finishing high school soon. Over the summer, he wants to develop new skills and learn how to grow food with his mother. He hopes to one day have a larger space of land they can grow food to feed their family. So yeah, just like a lot of emphasis on community space in terms of a welcoming space that's for young and old and everyone in between. We just really, really would like that integrated into the space, and having spaces dedicated to, like, for example, with the persona 1, like having medicinal plants, or for, you know, the persona 2 who brings her children to the garden, maybe a sensory garden to learn and whatnot. So like just little things like that would make the space a lot better. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, and then I just put this slide in just to stay in touch and get involved if you're interested. So you can follow us on Instagram at St. James Co-op. If you're interested in getting involved with our Eco Just Food Network, which is where we organize farm trips and whatnot during the growing season, feel free to register. If you are under 18, you will need a guardian to come with you, but more on the merrier. Bring your garden. It will be tons of fun. We're going to have loads of fun up at the farm this summer. And then if you're interested, come volunteer at the garden as well. We have composting and like specific volunteers for composting, weeding, watering, general maintenance, and group planting days as well. And then feel free to email me with any questions that you have throughout your process. I'm happy to answer anything. And then if you want to organize a site visit as well, please reach out to me or Danelle as far as I understand. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I think that was everything. Yeah, any questions?
Thank you so
I
much.
threw a lot of information at you guys.
Thank you so much, Brenna, for your presentation on the community co-op. I know I learned a lot about this amazing project, and I'm hoping everyone else did too. We'll now spend some time answering any questions about the site and design challenges you have. If you have a question, please feel free to unmute yourself or type your question in the chat. And do keep in mind that this is your only opportunity to ask Brenna questions about the site, so let's make the most of it.
I believe it's one or two. Maybe just one. I'm just trying to picture how it is. I think it's on, they kind of have to park on an angle. So it might be, I would say just one for now. This tree stump on it, it's probably, the ground is kind of slanted where it is. So I would probably say it's about like maybe half a foot off the ground, like total. It's quite large. And I have the measurements of the actual of how it was. Let me see if I can find it. That's better to visualize. And I think it is to scale on the drawing as well. But yeah, the stump is 5.5 feet by 3 feet. So it is quite a large space. Yeah, absolutely. We can get that satellite map of the garden. Yeah, and I can, maybe it might be helpful to like sort of like superimpose this drawing onto a satellite map, if that would be helpful. I'm not sure the updated version or like what's out there right now, but I'm sure we can get something. And we do have the photos as well that will help visualize.
If you don't mind me cutting in for a sec, I just wanted to mention that there is a site map, just like the one that Brenna shared in her slideshow in the design brief. And it has the different zones in different colors, so it's pretty easy to identify. And we're also sharing some photos of the site. We tried to do a satellite site map, but it was a little bit difficult because there are a lot of trees kind of covering it from the top. But yeah, lots of images.
Is there bike parking? Yes, there is right now. They're actually, so right beside, can you bring that sketch back up, if you don't mind? So right along this, so where the stairs are and along this side of the deck, sort of on the south side of the deck here, where the stairs, down a little bit to the left. Yeah, sort of where the parking, yeah, perfect. Right there, there's areas to park your bike. There's some of those, I don't know what they're called. The little things.
Bike racks, yeah.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yes.
That's okay.
Metal horseshoes in the ground, yeah. Is the garden going to be functioning accessible to the community during the winter as well? Probably not. Well, not as it stands right now. It is not super accessible or functions in the winter. If we were to have the ability to extend our season, either through greenhousing or having some cover for some of the beds, like that could be a fun experiment as well. So I would be totally fine with extending that, with being able to extend that a little bit and working more into the winter. But yeah, not as it is right now, it doesn't operate during the winter. The only entrance is where the parking area is. Yeah, that's right. So just where those stairs are, that is the only entrance at the moment. Like I said, yeah, it's a little bit tougher for some of our residents to get up there in the 2 sets of stairs. So, and I should mention this area that says like the 31 feet along the south side of the garden. To the left of that is a big sort of laneway where people park their cars as well. And at the moment, there's nothing going there, but we do have plans. If we get approved, city approval, we'll have that shipping container that I was mentioning about the Oasis for the Oasis Food Hub project. It would go in there at some point. So you really don't need to worry about it too much, but just for your consideration, like there is space, I guess, beside that wall. Someone asked me, is there a budget and are you planning to profit from money from this site? I'm not sure about budget. I think that might be a question for the One Up team, but in terms of profit, no, it's not a profit driven space. It's just meant for community involvement and learning and workshops and growing, and yeah, no profit. I mean, once we'll take their produce home, like I don't know what they do with it. Maybe they sell it, but it's not necessarily for the organization. Specifically people who will be maintaining the garden, or is it just the community members who look after it how they want to? Yeah, so it's a mix of both. So my role as coordinator is to make sure all the plots are divvied up to everyone and sort of assign general tasks, like I said, like composting, and we'll have people who do weeding and watering throughout the week and whatnot. But beyond that, you know, sort of like people's plots are what they want to do with them. So they'll be running their maintenance throughout the year. It's not necessarily one person's responsibility. I think we will have things in place, more of sort of like community guidelines in terms of taking care of your plot. Yeah, if like things things aren't maintained to a certain extent, then maybe we will like step in and sort of assess. But as it stands, it's just people taking care of their own plots once they're designated. How do I know roughly how high the deck is? Yes, I had the measurements. Maybe I didn't. I would say, I thought I took that. Sorry, I'm just looking over my notes here. Deck, stairs. I would say it's probably about like 2.5, like 3 feet. Ryan, Danelle, I know you guys saw the space, but does that seem right? Like 3 feet, the deck, like the deck height?
I'd say about 2 feet.
It's 2 feet, okay. Yeah, it's not too high up. So,
And again, in the site photos that we're sharing, there's a picture that shows the stairs, so you can kind of gauge how tall it is.
How big is each individual plot and how big should each individual plot be? Right now, the size of the plots, they come out from the wall about 5 feet, and they kind of vary in length. So it's kind of, they're not uniform in any way, really. So it really does vary, but they're all about 5 feet wide. And I would say roughly 6 feet to 7 feet. 6 to 7 feet long, I would say, is the standard. Again, like whatever length that is still accessible enough for people to reach the middle. Like if it's, for example, if it is raised beds, they can't be too wide because people can't reach into the middle and it kind of restricts them from growing in there. I think, yeah, I don't necessarily have an ideal measurement for what they should be, but I think the 5 feet wide works for how it's laid out right now. But if you come up with a different design that you know, you have a different method of doing the raised beds or the plots, like that's totally fine with me. But just keeping in mind that people need to be able to obviously walk around and move around, whether it's we have specific pathways, and be able to operate around each plot without interfering with the next person's plot. So leaving a bit of space for those as well. That answered the question.
We have any last minute questions? You can send them in now. If not, we will move on to the first design challenge video, which will guide you and your group members through the work you'll need to complete for session 1, understanding the site and users. And yes, this session is being recorded.
Vincent, I don't think the audio is working.
I do apologize. Let's try that again.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to session 1's instruction video. Thank you, St. Jamestown Community Co-op, for giving us an introduction on the site and users. For today's activity, the main goal is to establish a starting point for the case challenge. The materials required for this session are the Design Jam brief, research, site photos, and the vision board example provided to you in your packages. First off, with your team, you will collect and gather data on the following questions. Who lives in the surrounding community? What does the area look like? What types of communities are present? Who are the users of the community garden? What is the historical significance of the neighborhood? Where are the nearby parks and open spaces? Where is the main access to the site? What activities happen on the site? What does the site look like? What are some strengths and weaknesses of the site? The next step is to collect images to answer the questions about the St. Jamestown Community Co-op Garden and surrounding area to create a vision board. You will be creating a collage-style vision board, and you can add words and roadmaps to describe the goal of the project. Now I will be showing you a couple examples of a vision board. As you can see in this vision board, a number of pictures from Google relating to the existing site were added in a collage style. Here's a couple other examples. You will be doing the same with your team. The vision boards can be created by hand. You can use printed photos, produce them digitally, or use any other software. You can also use Google Docs or slides. Make sure to collect images to show things like historical significance, the people and the community, the overall feel of the existing site, and more. You can use these as examples. Use your imagination, remember to be creative, and think outside of the box. After this video, you will go into your breakout rooms with your team members and work on this challenge. Thank you and good luck.
We will now be splitting off into your teams, and you'll have 20 minutes to work together on your session 1 deliverables. During this time, our Urban Minds representatives will be popping in to check on your progress and answer any questions that you might have. Once you're in breakout rooms, we encourage everyone to share contact information and create a shared document. Could be a Jamboard, Google Docs, Google Slides, anything you like, so that you can work collaboratively. Feel free also to get to know each other by introducing your name, pronouns, school, grade, and why you decided to join the One Up Design competition. How you use your group time is completely up to you. However, we recommend running through the participant guide as a group and dividing up responsibilities, as well as starting to brainstorm how you would like to put your vision board together to answer the guiding questions from the video. We don't expect you to complete your session 1 deliverables today, but we do expect you to have your deliverables ready to show the experts at your next session 2 in 2 weeks so that they can give you feedback. That's why we also recommend taking some time right now to discuss your team's when you get into breakout rooms, to discuss your team's availability throughout the design competition and meeting outside design competition sessions so that you can ensure you come prepared to each session. Are there any questions about what to do in the next 20 minutes in your breakout rooms? We'll answer anything you guys put in the chat. All right, I think we're good to open breakout. Oh.
I'll try to answer that question. Thanks, Celine, for your question. Is there a budget? There is not a budget, but we do encourage you to keep in mind that this is an opportunity. If your team's winning design is chosen, that we could potentially accommodate and implement some of your ideas into the construction of the project in this coming summer. So that is something to keep in mind, but we encourage you to think big and be creative. So we don't want to restrict you with a given budget. So that's kind of hopefully enough to get you guys going.
Are we good to open the breakout rooms?
Yep, if there are no more questions, I will open up the breakout rooms now. Have fun, everybody. Perfect. And I see there are a few people who have been left unassigned, so please be patient with us as we manually put you into your correct breakout rooms. So we'll just get started with that.